All right, everyone. I'm extremely excited for my next guest. I met Alicia about a year ago this time, actually. We're probably coming up on close to a year. And we shared a space with IFS institution. We both were program assistants supporting the learning and growth of other practitioner and therapist. And it was in that space that I really learned a lot from Alicia because she leads with such bravery when she speaks that when she does speak, it captivates. And so this is one of the reasons she's been on my list of people I wanted to collaborate with. And I reached out to her and she said yes. So, Alicia, I'm so excited to be with you. And I
Yeah.
want you to do your introduction of yourself and what you want people to know about you. And then you can start into what you want to help people get language around and really the hope
Mhm.
around. Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah, I have parts that are taking in what you just said. Like, what? Who is she talking about? Uh, talking about you. So
Mhm.
I have parts that have really, they really try so hard to make Alicia digestible. And so the fact that you're naming my bravery is like, what in the
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I really appreciate the time that we had and to get to connect with each other in that learning space. Those PA relationships are so important. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, but yeah, Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor. I have been a therapist for a part of me says too long, but like 16 years, which feels like okay, we're getting up there.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting. I worked a lot in community mental health. I did a lot of community mental health work and um, with adults, children, and families, and transitioned to private practice. And then all of a sudden, in the private practice sector, I hear these three letters, IFS. I'm like, oh, what is IFS? What is that? And I at first I had parts that were so skeptical about this. It felt so it made a lot of sense on one hand, right? And then also it felt like weird. We're
Mhm.
getting messages from our body? Okay, sure. All right.
Mhm.
And then I started doing just part language, using that with my clients. And the aha moments that would just come from that was astounding. So I said, okay, I have to do this. And um, it feels like what started to become a calling for me, which I didn't know, was the death of my father in 2014. And there's like life before that and life after that. And I had so much happening in my life also at the same time. And it just completely like IFS in that was like the perfect, almost like marriage to help me through my journey of grief and really became a calling um, for me to be like, we need space. Like we need to make space for grief and specifically Black grief um, because what I learned is that there is no space, and so like we have to make space for our grief to be listened to be heard, to be felt, to be understood, and to know that it's not a it's not a character flaw that you're grieving. It's not some um, you're not doing it wrong if you're still crying, right? Like it's if you're angry, like that is, and it's a part of the grieving process. It's a part, like your grief is not wrong, and it's just an expression of the love that we have for either the someone or something, right, that we're missing, or the time period, right, in our life that we're missing. It's a could be grieving multiple things, but that hope, like that there is space and we can make space where there we haven't experienced space is like so where my heart is. And so I'm really excited to do this work and to talk to you about it, Tara. Like, wow, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm just like, there's so much here. Um,
Yeah, and I get that. And I have a lot of curiosity around when you say Black people grief and not having the space. And I'd like you to go slow. So, as you're speaking, that it lands differently for people to hear it this way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It, yeah, because there's a difference, right? There's a difference. I did a webinar, and I brought in like what happens? What happens when we have like this little cute, adorable baby, right? And this little black baby, right? That's here and they're cuddly, and we have to prepare them for a world that doesn't see them as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do we have to do? Us as parents, as a world, how do we, right? So those are those parts that we come in to tell them, like, you got to toughen up. Like, you got to toughen up. You have to have this hard exterior to prepare yourself for this world. Well, then what happens then when we introduce grief into the into that atmosphere? Because in order to grieve, we need to be vulnerable and weak. Like our most softest spaces need a space internally, right? To meet our like loving presence, to have our but if we only have that rough exterior because we're trying to protect ourselves from a world that doesn't see us as human, then grieving, making space for our grief becomes really hard. And it's like, well, I'm not allowed to cry and I'm not allowed to express my feelings because if I do, then I'm weak or I'm complaining. Or that's just like, what do you like? You got to get up and move on, right? Like, those are like messaging that you hear as a young black child. You do suck up. What are you crying for? Or it's like, these are messages that we get, and then we're met with pain and we don't know how to meet it, especially grief. And I think grief is even more complex from like other pain that we
Mm-hmm.
experience because our world is so death avoidant and even more grief avoidant that it just reinforces all of that. It reinforces all of that. And so if we're not supposed to talk about death and we can't talk about grief, and I'm a black person, I'm not supposed to really have feelings or express them
Mm-hmm.
because I can't afford. It's not safe for me to be vulnerable or weak. Then where can my grief be? Like, where can it go?
Yeah. And what I really hear there is as you're holding your baby and you're looking at the face that you've never seen such a more precious face than the one looking up at you. And you already know the stakes are so high and the trade's going to be higher.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
how to be there in that moment. And my guess is that's a moment so many people have shared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like as a black parent, like there's this duality here. Like, you want to meet your child with a loving presence, let them know you
Mm-hmm.
you love them, you support them, and you also have to prepare them for a world that doesn't. And so it's like, ah, like how do I do that and still right, still meet them with my care. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and like I have space. Like, I have space for your tears. I have space. And also know that, right, this world though out here, mm, like if they see you living your life, they may see a threat. They may see someone to, right, to take advantage of, or like that's what they may see. And how do we live in these two spaces? Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, as you're saying this, and I can only imagine for all the Black mothers and fathers out there who are literally in between a rock and a hard place.
And
And
it's
as you're speaking, it's where's the hope
mm,
for this little one,
yeah,
for
yeah.
this beautiful baby that you love the most, and it's truly a gift.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's hard to give that language of you're a gift to me and to the world,
Yeah.
because how do I teach them to safeguard themselves from the world that isn't accepting or loving of them as they are? Do I have that right?
Yeah. 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 It's like, um, hmm, yeah. Like the hope. And there's a part of me that's like, I want to slow down because I don't want to put a
Mhm.
pretty bow on like systemic racism. Right?
No. Mm-mm.
I want to do that. And I also I feel like the hope can be right in us now
Mhm.
meeting our children like with our own humanity, um and not forcing them to be something like out there, and be like we can create a space like in this house, right?
Mhm.
We value each other, we see each other, and yes, the outside world may, right? You may, we don't want to, like there's a part of me that's like may, no, they will, right? But it's like there's that's that I feel like sometimes can be such a hard thing to say as a parent. Like, no, you will endure this. You
Mhm.
will go through this. But it is unfortunate reality, and it's the way our world works. And so giving them the hope of like here we can create a space, and
Mhm.
then also internally too, right? You can make a space for you. And like that's the gift of IFS to me. Like it's like yes, this external circumstances,
Mhm.
like they are what they are, and you're going to need the armor to get through that.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can meet yourself, you can meet your grief, you can meet whatever here with with warmth and connection. Yeah, and not deny it.
Yeah, because something big really happens when people deny it.
Yeah, huge.
Mhm.
Um, Oftentimes what happens when we deny it is when it comes out in ways that are protected. Like so it comes out and you're never gonna hear me like scapegoat anger because anger is anger, we need it, right?
Mhm.
And also like grief, oftentimes when we don't have a space where we can come from a vulnerable space, it comes out through our methods of protection, right? So it's where it's anger, whether it's rage, whether it's substance use, whether it's like violence, like that's sometimes how our grief can show up. um, or rupture in family because we're holding the grief. We don't have a place for it, and it's coming out in this way. Like that's the way it's coming out. And yeah, it can be such a sad thing. I think too, if I think about what listening to like my clients throughout the years, oftentimes where I heard where their life like took a turn was like
Hmm.
a loss of a parent, a loss of a grandmother, like a loss
Hmm.
of that figure. Like all of a sudden their life just shifted, and now now I'm in this addiction. Now I'm in this space, like in this depression. Like help me.
Hmm.
Because there's just unfortunately, I don't know, like it was surprising to me the the limited amount of information that I received as a therapist, like in my master's program about grief. Like it was very astonishing to me. And so like having to read books
Hmm.
about it, um, which have been really life changing. Wild Edge of Sorrow by Frances Weller. I'm gonna always recommend that book.
Hmm.
Cried through that book. It is such a beautiful picture of what grief is, and also how to meet it. Um, such a beautiful, and what's missing from our world. There's so much missing here.
Hmm. Yeah. And a lot that's missing is that fear of that emotional overwhelm of grief.
Yes. Yeah, it is. That's a huge piece, Tara.
Hmm.
That's a big question I often get. Of
Hmm.
like, okay, Alicia, you're telling me to grieve, and it's gonna overtake me. And it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, when and oftentimes what people are naming is either the depression that's like really oppressed grief, like that they're naming that they're feeling like, oh, the sadness is going to overtake me.
Hmm.
Like grief in its natural form comes in like waves, and in the wave we're with the wave, we welcome the wave, and when we try to shut the wave down, or we have help, at least we have help, our system helps us out.
Hmm.
I have parts that like numb my feelings, and or if I notice like, oh, I'm eating a lot more than I normally would. I'm like, oh, I have some help here. Like we have
Uh-huh.
these that help us out to carry the. It's like, oh, okay, what's here that needs to be attended to? But yeah, if it's coming in waves, then yes. But yes, there's a huge piece. People are often so scared of the overwhelm of grief.
Hmm.
And I heard Francis say in a podcast, he's like, oftentimes what he responds is saying like, also, if you don't attend to it, it will, like it will overtake you.
Hmm.
And so it's what I found to be really helpful is just like taking steps, like really intentional steps, and tearing, like just attuning to the grief, just right, just you're doing it in moments, and that helps to build our seat to welcome our grief. Like, okay, and parts of us will say, okay, we can do this. Like, we can be here with it. We can be here with this pain. We can be here with this love, and yes, it is painful, and it's okay. Like, and we're gonna be okay. We're not gonna be completely overtaken by our grief. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I want people to hear, because it landed as such a beautiful invitation. What I want to reiterate is it's not walking up to that grief table and saying, all right, grief, I'm here. Let's do this. She said, stepping up to build the seat
Mhm.
for grief,
Yeah.
then to meet it.
Mhm. Yeah. Because we do have our help, like the parts of us that really try to protect us from the impact of it. And
Mhm.
so they need to like they need to trust this process too. and and oftentimes I'm speaking to because the one of the gates of grief that Francis names in this book is ancestral grief. So we're talking about ancestral grief for Black people. That just in itself feels just so heavy. It's so heavy, and so oftentimes we're not aware of what we're carrying. A lot of my grief and my journey, I know, is definitely coming directly from both of my grandmothers. And so both of them lost sons to violence, and so and they had to keep mothering through that.
Mm,
And so, and that's what I know. I mean, I'm talking about the things that I don't know. So I feel like we have to be really kind to ourselves too with tearing up and really leaning into what feels safe for me and where do I start? Like, where do I start? Yeah.
and as people are listening, and let's say some of what you're saying is really landing for them. And right now, in this point, I can imagine someone thinking, okay, well, where do I start?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was happening for me, Tara, too. Like I was like, I'm hearing this. I'm hearing what you're saying, Alicia.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when in the part I feel like I haven't named, which is also so important, is that grief is meant to be held in connection.
Mm.
So having spaces where, which can be a challenge, and I want to name
Hmm.
that, like, can be a challenge because it's so hard for people to attune to grief. They want to make it better. They want to make it all, they want to fix it. They want to make it smaller, more comfortable for them, right? And
Hmm.
they don't want to say the wrong thing, like all of that. And so it can be really challenging to find spaces to in connection, whether it's like through grief support or one thing I did as a because I tried to find grief support, but it and unfortunately like it didn't feel like it was attuning to what I was
Hmm.
needing. And so I just had a group of friends that I know all didn't have a like they had lost a parent, and I said, hey, what about us get together once a month? And so making and finding spaces to grieve in connection can really help to start that journey. And so I feel like it's important for me to name that it's hard to find a space,
Hmm.
and and also too that's a great way to start the journey. Like that having that connection can also help like our nervous system lean into like, oh, okay, all right, if I can do this here, and then okay, if a wave of grief hits me when I'm in my car, or if a wave of grief hits me on my own, I can maybe I can be with this. Maybe I can let it be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm curious with your group of friends.
Mhm.
So 10 years ago is when your father passed.
Yeah.
How many of them? Because I can imagine people sitting and like, yeah, that's probably great because she's a therapist. Like, do I need to get a friend who's a therapist? And like, how do they create a
Uh-huh.
healing space if they don't have the access to a friend being a therapist?
Right. Yeah.
How do they do this? How do
Yeah.
we do this?
Yes. I am the only therapist in in the group, so it's not like a group of therapists. So that sounds like a really cool space. Um, and two, like I think it's important because I picked this group, and so it was a group of people that I felt like one like were able to be with a feeling,
Hmm.
to just be with it. Um, and and so that's I feel like a huge piece of it. Someone bringing their grief to you, that's a gift. Like that is a gift. And it is and and I have a part that says, and it needs to be honored, right? But
Yes.
it's a beautiful gift for someone to bring their grief to you. They are bringing their loved one. They're bringing their pain to you,
Hmm.
and they're longing, and so making sure that if you are in a space whether it's like a space that's already, because they do have like grief support groups like grief share and things of that nature, like, and so if you're in a space or you're making a space for your grief with other people, um leaning into, yeah, do you trust this space to bring your grief, your precious grief there, and know that it won't be judged. It won't be massaged. It will just, like, it can just be. This is such a, yeah, important piece of the grief work, because that is what oftentimes people do get outside of spaces like that, of trying to just trying to that trying to is it can really be really painful
Hmm.
and make the grief journey much harder when people are trying to. Hmm.
And I want you said something just so, it was so beautiful because there's a big difference. There's a difference of when you get the privilege to hold somebody in their pain and their grief. And there's a difference when you come in and you try to massage when someone's looking to be held.
Yeah, yeah.
There's such a big difference there. And I'm curious from your experience as you've navigated the world as a Black woman,
Mhm.
what have you seen happen around that of people missing the connection, missing the opportunity?
Well, one, so I want to make sure I'm hearing your question too.
Hmm.
What have I seen? Like, what happens when it isn't met? Is that what, or what have I seen as a Black woman, right? Being, like, having grief not attuned. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But both and I like them both the way you
Let's do both.
I like
Uh,
them both.
yeah. It is internally for me, my own grief journey. It built up a lot of rage. A lot of fighting to be heard. Like, there was a part of me that was just like fighting, like, there's nothing wrong with my grief, and I don't understand what you're like. What are you saying? What are you saying? Like, there were so many messages that I was getting that my grief would make people uncomfortable. My grief would, um, is just quiet. Just stop. Just don't say anything. Like, just, okay. Did you see what you just did now because you said something, right? So I think even that part of me that heard you say, like, oh, Alicia's so brave, like like that, just and those two experiences, like, marrying that, it's like, for me,
Hmm.
oftentimes what's happening is that people are holding something in isolation. So the grief journey is already very lonely because you're grieving something that nobody else has experienced. Like, you're grieving, like, your either like your relationship with that loved one or that object. Like, you're grieving
Hmm.
that. And while, say, a parent may have multiple children, they all had a different relationship with each child.
Yes.
So you're grieving that.
Hmm.
And if I can't share it as a Black woman, I can't share it. I'm not supposed to have pain in any way. I'm not supposed to, like, my pain isn't supposed to impact how I show up, because I'm supposed to still be able to take care of everything. And if I need help, then that's a weakness. If
Hmm.
I ask for help, that means it's a weakness. If anything, I can't. And I think too, there's like there's fear of if I can't handle it, then now what? Because me as a black woman, oftentimes it's like I'm my only resource. There's like no white horse, or there's no cavalry coming to save me. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's internal like fear of allowing myself to be human, to hold my grief, to be present with my grief. I have to be strong. There's like
Mm-hmm.
this messaging, there's like this internal engine that's saying that. And so it really oftentimes the what I see is like this pressure to overwork to avoid the feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the depression that's there to try to stop the overworking. And then there's the grief in the middle. And they're just like grief is like, hey, can you feel me? And then it's like, no, I have to stay busy, I have to keep moving. And then the depression is like, shut this body down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's oftentimes what I've seen, uh, and especially in Black women specifically, like this overwork and this, oh, I'm so tired. I don't understand. I can't move. I can't think. My body's shutting down. And oftentimes, what is the myth is that this shutdown is the grief. When really, this shutdown is like the invitation to grief. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you got something down here that needs that needs to be attended to, uh, which is and grief isn't pretty, especially Black grief. It's not pretty. It's not. It's a lot of um, there is a lot of anger there. There is a lot of, especially for we're talking about systemically what we've experienced as a people. There is this moniker or stereotype that's attached to Black women and men, like this of anger, and it's like, well, I feel like we have some pretty legitimate reasons to be angry,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's directly connected to a grief we're holding oftentimes because of what we experience, and so that anger, that overworking, because we can't stop this. So it's like a fear of like, well, what if we stop? What now? And that shutdown, and then of course it's like we need some support to soothe all of this. So are we eating something? Are we drinking something? What are we doing to help
Mm-hmm.
soothe? And so it's that's and we're all holding that in our bodies. Like we're holding that in our bodies and shaming ourselves for not being able to continue to function. Why can't I get it right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have these parts of us that believe that we're supposed to be these superhuman machines of production to survive this world, and when really we're just needing to be present with what we're holding. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you're speaking, and I can imagine for people listening, the dipping into the body, dipping in to listen to that nervous system. Because what I really hear is if they dip, if anybody dips too deep, it's that overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it too is just it's fear of like, okay, um, I think it's fear of the unknown because
Yep.
I think that's even like sometimes a concept in our mind that it's something we need to get curious about, like what we're holding in our body. Um, it's like we use our thoughts to navigate life.
Mhm.
So dipping into this, the fear of the overwhelm of what's in here, what is our body holding, and then to becoming aware of the fact that we are blocking something. Because I was having a conversation about dissociation with a couple of supervisees because and I was like, let's just talk about dissociation. We're just like, let's talk about it. And as and I was naming like, yeah, oftentimes I'm asking my clients how they're doing, and then they'll tell me what they're doing.
Hmm.
And like, oh, and I'm noticing like, oh, there's some separation. Like they don't know how they're doing. They just know what they're doing. And it's like, oh. And then all of them are like, oh, oh. I do that too. I'm like, yeah. So like, sometimes I think it's like we're not aware too that we're blocking our awareness of our body too, and so like coming into to that can also just be a journey of like, okay, I didn't know that I really wasn't aware of how I'm doing, and then yeah, like you then what you named the fear of
Hmm.
no, am I gonna feel than actually feel how I'm doing. Can I do that? How do I do that? What are you saying, Alicia? Be there
Hmm.
with your grief. What does that look like? You know, it can be a foreign space. So I use a good old empty chair, right, as a way to really help give a visual, like, okay, if your grief was sitting in this chair, right, like what would you say to it? How do you feel right towards this grief that's in this chair? Yeah. What what's here? And to really help them get a concept of like how are they relating with their grief and what it would be like to allow their grief to speak and to feel heard by them.
That right there, such a really big concept, that ability to come back to yourself first, and you get to meet it and hold it first,
Yeah. 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 Hmm.
and to really be with it in a different way. And for my clients, what I see is they're waiting for someone else,
Of course.
right?
Of course. Absolutely. I, I was. I was.
I was too.
Yeah, like I get it. I was, and so that's I'm like, thank goodness for IFS, man. Like
Hmm.
I really was, and so so angry that other people, and we talking, we're talking about Black people specifically, like so angry at people not seeing, like, hey, I'm in pain. Hello,
Hmm.
hello, hello. Can you attend? Hello. And not realizing like me knocking on their door, getting their attention was really like me trying to get like my attention to be with what I was holding. And wow. And I make space for both, right? Like because I feel like yes, it would be and could be, and it is a beautiful thing oftentimes when people can be present
Hmm.
for us in our grief. And so making space too for even the grief around not getting that, right? Like, so it's like we're not wrong for wanting co-regulation. Like it's not a, a ding against us. We're not being codependent. We're not being needy. We're not being too much. Co-regulation is a part of regulation. Like it's,
Hmm.
right? We think about that baby, like we're doing this to the baby.
Hmm.
And so we're used to that. We need that. And when we can also, too, if our world is limited, which we know it desperately is, and specifically, too, for marginalized people, as as people of color, Black people, there's even more limited because we have taken in these messages like meet somebody and we're bringing them with our grief, and they're like, you got to move on. You got to get, how long are you going to stay there? And
Hmm.
that it, then it's like, okay, let's make space for let's give ourselves grieve not them not being able to. Absolutely. And also give ourselves a space where we can be present for our grief and feel heard.
Yeah. And I want to take you back to what you said with family and at home, we're going to hold this space.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone, is listening and saying, "Oh, I can't even, that seems impossible for me to hold it for myself, and I'm a parent. How do I have the capacity to open this up for my children so that they know their experience is real
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I see you in it. You're not alone and you're not too much. This isn't too much."
You're not weak, right? But
Yeah.
that's I feel like that's a lot of work that, we as parents have to do because there can oftentimes be a fear of us giving our children that message, right? And and so if it's like a both and like that, yes, you can be here, you can feel you're not too much, your feelings aren't wrong. What you're not making this up in your head. You don't have to think about it a different way like this, yes. And know that there is this world out here that yeah, they're gonna meet you differently. And so, yeah, it's a challenging space. I'm like
Hmm.
that myself. It's a really challenging space, and it's an unfortunate space. I think I'm right now even holding some grief around that. Like, yeah, of how challenging that is. Mhm.
And I'm probably going to step in it right now,
Okay.
but I do want to use this space to be curious because and people may ridicule me for it. And I'll have to maneuver that as it comes, if it comes.
Okay.
I'm curious because I am white. I am a woman, so we do share that identity, right? Both mothers.
Mhm.
I am curious as I navigate the world, and I know that minorities have a very different experience than I do.
Mhm.
And I know that certain messaging I have heard out in the, I don't know what to call it. Do we call it society? Uh, Messaging just from different sources of, I've heard several different things. I've heard different people saying, "Hey, we don't want white people to show up. We don't want your help. We don't need you."
Uh,
I've heard all white people need to get therapy.
hmm.
And I've heard that in Dick Schwartz workshops. And
Yeah.
then him saying, "Yes, they do." And I agree. I'm a big proponent of I believe everybody needs healing.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's therapy, you get to choose on your
Yeah.
journey for healing.
Yeah.
But as a white person, I find myself that I will freeze and not make a decision out of the fear of not attending or tuning correctly or not being wanted. And so if I'm navigating the world and it's more with acquaintances and friends, right? Friends are different. I believe you can have some different conversations.
Yeah.
But as a white person, how do we help, not even help, hold? I'm going to change the word. It's
Mm-hmm.
how to hold collectively together. And it may be that we're not there yet. And people may be trying to rush to that point, and there actually needs to be more repair and healing first.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm sitting with that because I like the language shift
Mhm.
uh, from help to hold.
Yeah.
Um, I feel I feel like there can be right this want to fix even right
Mhm.
from uh, and there's a part of me that doesn't like saying white people. I don't know what that's about, but from white people who want to come and save. I feel like that in itself is a thing, right? This
Mhm,
white savior, right? I need to fix it because of what is that doing for me? Like
mhm,
I'm trying to fix something internally for me because I want to be good. I don't want to be seen, right, as something. And so it's like checking in internally, like, oh, is there an agenda around the whole thing? It feels like, because that will be felt, right? That will be felt if there is
mhm,
like an agenda around the holding. When I'm in safe spaces with people who don't look like me, with white people, and they're holding space with me, it's because I feel like they see me as a
mhm,
black woman. They see they see the world in their limited way, right? Because they can't fully
mhm,
understand, but they see me versus them and what they're trying to right fix in them. And so it's like I don't know if you have to go to therapy in order to see to know that, but to definitely have the attunement and awareness of what are you trying what's trying to happen right now where you're wanting to hold or be with. Is it just because you're wanting to like get a box checked, or is it because like, hey, just just checking, like this is a connection. I'm checking to see, are you okay? And being able to make space and room for it to not be pretty. Like it's right because it's black pain and black grief it is not it's not pretty. It's often connected to so much, oftentimes, and so it I find grief specifically is often connected to our story, especially in this country. So it's like um it's like we're talking about Black life, right? And Black life ending. It's like our life expectancy has been cut short because of those experiences.
mhm.
Like that is that's a part of it. So it's like,
Yep.
um, if you if that's gonna make you uncomfortable, like if that's gonna if you know yourself, like if it's gonna make you uncomfortable, then know like maybe that you're not there yet to be able to hold that, like because that is a part of our story. It
Yeah.
is.
And I want people to really slow down with you don't have to be the knower of everybody.
No.
You're actually looking at the expert. Just ask them. Slow down
Mhm.
and be with them and get curious. Not
Mhm.
of agenda to say something back to them, not to heal them, but
Yeah.
to be with them.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I don't
Yeah.
know about that. And it's
Mhm.
the invitation because I do believe a lot gets lost. People believe they ask a question that it needs to be answered. And the beauty of IFS that I really love is the invitation of, I'm going to get curious. And this part of you has a choice to respond.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful piece that you're naming. I think um uh, for me, like one of the number one rules, like when we're wanting to attend or tend to someone else's grief, is letting the grieving person take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like they get to lead if like they want to talk about it. They get to, like we don't even have to. We could just sit here, like right. So they get to take the lead, and so if there is a question that you have, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't want to answer that." Okay,
Yeah.
all right, and um, I think that's a huge piece. Like, because oftentimes I think the mistake we make oftentimes when we're meeting someone with grief, we're just telling them, "Let me know if you need anything." And I mean, grief brain is a real thing,
Mhm.
especially when the loss happens in the first, what, maybe few months. Like your brain's not, you're not, what is, what, I don't know what I need. Who knows what you need? Who knows, right? And so it's like just letting them take the lead and being with them can be such a gift. It can be such.
And I want to bring in, it was Carmen Jimenez. Is it Jimenez? How do you say her? I can get pride. What's the last part? Carmen
I think it's Jimenez. I think.
Jimenez. Okay. I wanted to make sure I said that right. Pride. She, in one of her workshops, she had said, and I may not get this verbatim, that when somebody has a loss, she says, I'm going to hold you and your whole family in love.
Hmm. Yeah.
Instead of asking them, what do you need?
Yeah. Because people don't know. And then
Mm-mm.
oftentimes too, it's like then when they tell you what they need, and then if it's like, is it something you have capacity to do? Like that's like that opens the can of
Yeah.
can of like, right. So it's, yeah, I'm holding you, I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
and it oftentimes that question of what do you need, that comes much later. Much later. Because then there's like, oh, okay, awareness. It's awareness. It's depth specifically. I often liken it to like being almost like being hit, like with a huge impact. I use like a Mack truck as a as an example. It's like, and you're like trying to like orient your life after that, and it takes time. The first year is a blur, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and then all of a sudden, okay, okay, I'm getting my bearings, and so now that question of what do you need can come into play. I'm like, okay, okay, I can tell you what I need. Yeah, I need to come someone to come sit with me while I make these grief blankets, or I need someone to do this. I just need to talk to somebody. Uh, Yeah, and what could be so powerful is just allowing that person to say their beloved's name. It
Mm-hmm.
could be
And
so
having
powerful.
the capacity for someone just to say, I miss my dad or I miss my mom, and knowing that you can't fix that, and there's not an offer in the world that you can offer this person other than to sit with them, hold them, and be patient as they're navigating their grief.
Mm. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful gift.
So before we wrap this up,
Mhm.
I am curious for you, as you've had clients come in the workplace, right? How does, and this is more targeted for leaders, of when they have someone in grief, whatever the grief is, if they could do one or two things to really support or hold that employee in love, in care, what would it be?
Yeah. I, and it's so funny. I know we were talking about this before, but the way this question is landing with me now is so much different. Um, and what's coming up for me is like there was I attended a traumatic grief training earlier this year, and she talked about how much money companies lose because they don't allow people to have like adequate grief like bereavement
Mhm.
leaves. It that companies lose money because people aren't their brains are not attuning to what they have to do in order to work. And so it's like leaning into, yeah, caring for this individual and allowing them to name and and if they need to, right? Because there's people who may not even feel like they have permission to take a leave. But if not, if they don't have permission to take a leave, at least trying to give them some type of company support around it, whether it's lightening their load, giving them something that may not be as heavy,
Mhm.
and support through it. Um, you know, it's it's so needed. It's so needed. Um, so needed. And because I think about I just started a job 2 weeks before my father passed. I just started a job, and I was grateful enough that that job had its beautiful benefit of like automatic PTO. Like once you start the job, got this huge amount of PTO hours, 4 weeks. So like I was able to catch my bearings, and then because I was the type of job I was starting, like the position was like slow moving, so I was just like it just fortunate enough to have that
Mhm.
process. But I know my situation is was very unique, and so I would beseech leaders to advocate for leave, like real bereavement leave for their employees, and support as well. Like, how can we support them in like lightening their load? And I know that goes against capitalism, that goes against the bottom or seeing people as humans. So like,
Mhm.
I know I'm making a huge ask, and also it feels like, what would the world be like if we could do that?
Yeah. To actually get to hold each other in love and care,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
to meet people where they are. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Because there is a big loss. There is with we lost my father-in-law unexpectedly, and my work didn't have bereavement leave. And with me in and out, yeah, they didn't get much from me. Even the a task of plugging and chugging with
Yeah.
everything that a person is trying to navigate with the loss. There's only so much capacity. And so I hope if a leader is listening to this, understanding you can do both and it's not either or.
Mhm.
You can do this so that a person has the space and it's going to really show the value. Oh, my employer really cares.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what I heard you say with that automatic 4 weeks
Yeah. I was
was,
like,
oh, I got to navigate the whirlwind of what death brings,
hmm hmm
right? Just that start of the whirlwind, because it goes on, right? It's not just in the first few weeks.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you said Wild Edge of Sorrows.
Yes.
Are there
Well,
any other resources?
there is a great book called A Hole in the World, and it talks about grief rituals of the past
Mhm.
and how, again, our world was much more community focused. And so there was a lot of grief rituals that are no longer here. And
Hmm.
it really, so it really, really, just, it was a really powerful read for me. The book that I'm reading now is, I want to get the name right. Um, of course, Grieving While Black is a great book that I'm also reading. uh, Reading lots of books. The Smell of Rain on Dust, um, by Martin Prechtel is is a very like poetic. book around grief and praise and how they're often synonymous, and it's really great work. This is he's an indigenous worker, um, and it's beautiful, beautiful poetic work. So those are definitely some books I would really recommend as a way to kind of even give our systems, right, that permission to make more room. Because that's definitely what my experience was of reading the books. It was like, okay, we
Yeah.
can do we can do this. We can make space. Hmm.
And I'm curious if people would want to connect with you or hear more from you, or what bridges to you are there for people to cross?
What bridges?
Hmm.
Well, I have my website, aliciajacksonlpc.com, and that
Okay.
pretty much gives you all the bridges to me. Um, and I have my YouTube channel, and I have social media to Alicia Jackson LPC pretty much everywhere. I'm not as active as I used to be. So I do have parts that are like, we took a break from social media, but I am still still there and answering and responding there too. So that's definitely how you can stay connected with me. And I do have lots of appreciation for this invite, Tara. I have to admit, I know that some of our parts really, well, it definitely did. I had a part that just really, really loved your mama bear and for your son. And so I'm just, yeah, really grateful to reconnect, and I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. And I hope that we can do this again.
Oh
Not
yeah.
putting you on the spot, but I'm gonna, right, there's the invitation. So
That's
we'll see if we can connect again. I would love to. I'm also going to put all this information, and hopefully I didn't miss anything. I'm going to put it in so people can click on it and get more familiar with what you're doing and how you're changing the world, and let them get more time with you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it and looking forward to hopefully doing this soon.
absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right.